And welcome back. Montgomery County's privileged position next to the Hall of Government Power allows us to have a vested interest in the comings and goings of Congress. And this week, at least the past 3 days, we've seen the democracy in action. While after 11 ballots, the Republican Party has failed to elect a Speaker of the House. Marc, many think that the failure to elect a Speaker is now, kind of a national disgrace and shows that the Republican Party doesn't know how to govern. What say you?
Well, it's interesting. This phenomena of having trouble of electing a speaker has occurred in a lot of state houses over the years, and most recently in Pennsylvania. And what happened was this was a cross-party coalition came together to elect a speaker. So in the Pennsylvania example earlier this week, a Democrat who there's some question because of vacancies which party controls the Pennsylvania House, but basically a Democrat became an independent and with Republican and Democratic votes was elected speaker. In Maryland, we had something of a similar circumstance with the election of the last speaker, not this year, but a number of years ago. So I will confess the long-winded response to say I'm surprised that there hasn't been more of a move to reach a compromise candidate across party lines. There had been some suggestion, for example, that Fred Upton, who has retired, would be a possibility that may get some bipartisan choice there.
Well, that's interesting. As I told one of my friends who said that, who put forth a different name, Republican congressman from North Carolina, right. I said, the Democrats are not going to help the Republicans get out of this mess.
Well, but it's interesting. Again, looking at, I understand the optics back and forth about that. But that said, you look at looking at state legislatures around the country where this has happened, actually the minority party has considerable incentives to work across party lines. And again, it only takes, I guess, depending on how you count with vacancies, 5 or 6 Republicans and the Democrats to pick a choice. So again, what that then obviously then does is flip the leverage in the discussion, since those 20 holdouts need to kind of wonder what happens where they're left out.
You've done a great job, Marc. But I will point out that on the 11th ballot, Mr. McCarthy did receive 1 Democratic vote. Nancy, you've always been an independent in your legislative career, so it's I'm kind of intrigued as to what your perspective on all of this is. The 20 renegades, at least ostensibly, claim they're trying to bring back regular order to the House of Representatives, as opposed to a rubber stamp from the leadership office. What's your view on this?
Well, you guys, talk about bipartisanship. That went away a long time ago. And it's your party that made that happen, if you ask me. But so reaching across party lines is just BS. Thank you. It sounds good. One party control is what this is all about, and it's about nothing else. So let's be real about that. I don't think that's right. But that is the game that's played in Capitol Hill. What I think is interesting, and no one is reporting on this, is what is the argument really about? The thing about Congress is they really don't do much except the budget. And nobody knows what's in the budget until it comes out. And that's where they add all these add-ons having to do with these powers and authority and this and sort of thing, this omnibus kind of bill. So that's the deal. The basket, that's the deal that they engage in. Now, I am guessing there's something in the rules about that. And the rules are what control how decisions get made and how different points of view are addressed. As you know, it's very different than how it used to be when we were, first involved in public office. Now, deals are all made in a back room. And I think what's interesting is there's no talk really about the House rules and how decisions get made. That's part of the argument that I think is on the table. There's a sort of course,
Well, I think
pissing match
that's
going on. But, and I will also say that we think that Kevin McCarthy is a moderate leader is nuts, at least from the Democratic perspective. So it's an interesting behavioral situation. They'll come up with something. But what would be interesting is to like follow the money and see what really is going on behind closed doors. I think that's part of what the renegade team is looking at. But nobody talks about it because there's so few of them and they're so extreme. There may be legitimate issues out there. We're not hearing about them.
So, Marc, I'm going to let you have the last word, because from what I hear, it is precisely what Nancy has been talking about, which are the rules regarding the budgeting and whether there should be 12 separate budgets introduced by the Congress and passed rather than an omnibus bill. But I'll let you have the last word.
Well, I was going to say, first, the rules of the House have always been, I mean, for a long time, whatever the majority says. So everything, unlike the Senate, you get the numbers, you suspend the rules and do what you want. Regular order would be great to get the appropriations bills through. Unfortunately, they don't get passed, and that's why we end up with the omnibus bills. It would be, I think, preferable to have each independent bill get passed. That hasn't happened in a while, and that's why we get to the end of the year, or actually after the end of October 1st, when the new fiscal year starts, without the necessary legislation.
Well, my prediction, I hope, is that by the end of the day, we're being taped on Friday. By the end of the day, we'll have a Speaker of the House so they can go on recess. I will note that the Senate, they called into session on Tuesday. They were promptly sworn in and then voted on a 3-week recess for themselves till the end of January. So we'll have to wait and see what portends for next week.